I think you can have those like watershed moments where someone says something or you see something or you just catch yourself doing a thing that you've been doing your whole life and you go, oh my God, am I literally going to look at my thighs and have this thought till I'm 105? Like, when does that stop? It could actually just stop right now.
Welcome to the Midlife Feast, the podcast that helps you make sense of your body, your health, and menopause in the messy middle of midlife. I'm Dr. Jen Salib-Huber, intuitive eating dietitian and naturopathic doctor, and author of Eat to Thrive During Menopause. Around here, we don't see midlife and menopause as problems to solve, but as invitations to live with more freedom, trust, and joy. Each week, you'll hear real conversations and practical strategies to help you feel like yourself again, eat without guilt, and turn midlife from a season of survival into a season of thriving. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dig in. It might surprise you to learn that many years ago, I was a Jillian Michaels devotee. And it's really hard to say those words because I am not a fan of that all or nothing shame-based approach. That much you probably know about me, or if you're new here, you should definitely know that about me, whether we're talking about food or movement or mindset or just life. There's way too much going on for anything to be perfect ever, but especially when it comes to movement. So after I broke up with Jillian Michaels, I did nothing for a couple of years. And this was all at the same time that I was learning intuitive eating and kind of trying to find my way with a relationship with my body that was based on trust. But movement was a little bit harder to come back to because it still felt like there was a formula I should follow. And that formula in my head sounded like 30 minutes, 6 days a week, every week of the year, and otherwise it's not enough. So if you feel like you're stuck in this messy middle of not quite fitting into the mold of what you thought fitness needed to look like, then I think you're going to love this conversation with Cadence Dubus. And Cadence and I have a conversation about what it actually means to know that you're doing enough, why metrics like, step counts and trackers and things like that may not be giving you the information that you need, and what it can look like when you have a relationship with movement that isn't based on anyone else's needs except your own. So thanks so much to Cadence for joining me. As always, I always love to hear what you think of these episodes. And if if there's anything that you particularly enjoyed or stood out, let me know. Hi, Cadence. Welcome to the Midlife Feast.
Hey, I'm so glad to be here.
I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. We talk a lot about fitness on the podcast. I've had a few people recently and over the years, and I always try and include different perspectives around movement and fitness because as we get into midlife, there's a lot of, let's say, pressure, let's say recommendations for people to, move their bodies. But I also feel like it's such an important tool in our toolbox for mental health, physical health, like all the reasons. But it can also be hella complicated for people who may have spent a lot of time in fitness culture, fitspo culture. And I think that you know a little bit about that.
I do.
So please introduce yourself.
I'm Cadence Dubus. I'm the founder of Brooklyn Strength, which is a 16-year-old fitness and wellness company that started as one and then two storefronts in Brooklyn. And then I reimagined the whole enterprise in 2020 and have been able to continue to build my business virtually. I'm based in Brooklyn, but I teach people all over the world. And I'm also the host of Busybody Podcast, which is also where we met. Great episode.
Yeah, and that was that was really the first time that I was introduced to you. And when I meet such like-minded people, I'm always like, how did I not know this person before? So and today I want to talk about something that anybody in any age group can relate to, but certainly in midlife, of not fitting into the one-size-fits-all fitness world. And I'd love to hear a little bit about maybe how you see that. Like when I say one size fitness world as a fitness trainer, what does that bring up?
This is such a rich topic, and it's something that I think about a lot because I think So I'm about to be 44, and it was really my generation that were kind of the first women to be able to go into a gym without even considering that we weren't welcome there, really. It was women bodybuilders in like the 80s that broke the doors open because literally gyms used to be men only
Yeah.
spaces. And we could talk like about how like there's a whole strain of sort of female quote unquote fitness that is essentially because women weren't allowed to be working out and we weren't allowed to be building muscle or kind of doing endurance sports. I mean, women were only allowed to literally join marathons very recently in the late 70s, early 80s. As well, there weren't even women's running shoes until very recently. Like, we don't really think about this. Like, sports bras weren't invented until actually still very recently. Like, all of this stuff were barriers. But thanks to some very powerful women in the 80s who were just like, I want to lift weights too, suddenly gyms are now these like full service places where there's aerobic equipment and weight rooms and, you know, like steam rooms and all these things. And um, my generation, and I literally remember working out with my high school best friend, we would like go to the gym and like run on the treadmill and then we'd do some weights and all this stuff. And that was still very new. I mean, and also we were like still the minority in the weight room for sure. But now if I walk into a gym, I mean, it's like 50-50. I mean, there's just tons of women and women doing really powerful stuff and like feeling a lot of agency there, which is super cool. But I think the history of like how we got here still has like some very narrow roots of like what fitness is, who's allowed to do fitness, and I think a lot of people don't consider that like your on the corner orange theory or whatever is really perpetuating a lot of that, whether they mean to or not. But that's so often what happens when like mass consumerism gets involved.
Let's
So
talk about that because just like with bodies and this ideal body look, whatever that is, because it doesn't exist,
correct.
there's often this image that comes up when people hear, I want to get fit.
Correct.
That not only does it have a look, but that there's a formula that you follow,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
Yeah, and a series of like check boxes of especially like my constant irk is the New York Times's like little fitness like that pops up in my inbox like, are you getting enough whatever folic acid hours of sleep? And then literally my clients will say, should I be worried? They just did a thing like adult women should be able to do like 9 push-ups or something like very random. Oh my God, the amount of people that were like messaging me like, I'm not sure I could do that. I thought I was really fit. I'm just like, oh, there are so many factors involved in being able to do a full push-up, including that you had wrist surgery last year. Like, let's put ourselves in context. Like,
Yeah, and it brings up this idea that like, okay, if I follow ABC, then I will get to D. And again,
yeah,
just this idea of like a prescriptive formulaic approach, right?
yeah,
And I think that that might feel accessible to certain people in certain bodies with certain privilege and accessibility and
and
like all the
mentality.
things,
Some
right?
people love following directions. Some
Yeah.
people, as I would say, are bakers and not cooks. You know, give me a list of ingredients, I'll put them together, and I'll just focus on that. Personally, I'm a cook and not a baker. That formula, immediately, I want to rebel and run away from that.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love analogies so much. Listeners on the podcast are probably rolling their eyes like, oh no, Jen's got a new analogy now. But that is exactly it. Like you can be a baker and that's great. And I can
Yeah,
bake, but I'm much more of a cook and I don't really love following. I don't like the need to follow a set of rules in order for it to turn out.
totally, totally. And I would say when it comes to mainstream fitness, to bring Cadence's like low key communist anarchist thread that runs behind my podcast and a lot of my teaching, you know, we often are really being subtly trained to be obedient, right? Like that's so much of what Western education looks like. Sit in school all day, learn to be quiet, raise your hand if you have bodily needs, like you're gonna faint or you have to go to the bathroom.
Right.
How dare you take care of your own body with agency? Um, And so even in the fitness world, there's this like, follow this formula and you will achieve perfection. And if you can't follow formula, clearly you're a failure and you're terrible at life, and it's all your fault. Let's not talk about how you like already are working two jobs and you have three kids and one of them has dietary restrictions and like, you're not a professional chef, but now you have to make food for everyone. And like, all of these other things, slash, there's no social support. At least in the US, definitely other countries, probably where you're living, there's a lot more assistance. But um, I think like to just remember that like a lot of literally like fad fitness is very much about everyone becoming the same and performing the same, and like what is the performance of sameness. And this is this thing that I also try to bring people's attention to when we're looking at metrics, and people are now, because of Apple watches and stuff, people are like addicted to these metrics. And I'm like, is our goal sameness every day forever? Like, is that literally what you want to do? Because that does sound like a factory worker from 1954, which is not the lifestyle that I'm looking for. I don't want to assemble the same car handle 17,000 times a day, 7 days a week for the rest of my life.
Oh
But
my God.
someone can get addicted to looking at their little Apple Watch, like, oh, I didn't do my steps. I haven't, but my heart rate is different. Blah, blah, blah. And like, what is the value of that actually? And it is literally like anti-life. It is anti the diversity, the flexibility, the resilience, and just like having a life. Like, someone interrupts you. This is my favorite. It's not even an analogy, but I'm always just like, do people not have friends? Like, even this morning, we have a house guest. If I was a person that was like, every morning I get up and I do my 35 minutes of yoga and then I go for my 3 mile run, we literally have a house guest that I would like to spend time with, which means that this morning, before this podcast, I was standing in my kitchen chatting with my friend. So that would have interrupted my very important early morning fitness routine, forever lost, and now all my metrics are off for the day, like, but I'm like, I
Right.
think it's better for my life to socialize and enjoy the people that I enjoy, and I
I'm
do think
so
that
glad.
really gets lost.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad that we've already taken a little tangent, because this whole idea of sameness, of like doing the same thing every day on repeat,
Mm,
is one of the unattainable standards that applies to
yes,
both
yes,
food
yes,
and
yes,
movement,
yes.
that leaves so many people feeling stuck. I
Especially
know.
people in female bodies, or like female hormone bodies. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And we've done these kinds of things in the feaster community, in my group community, where it will say like, okay, what would it look like to take your watch off for a week or two?
Seriously.
And initially the anxiety of, but I won't know how much I've moved. I won't know if I've moved enough, is really uncomfortable. But pretty quickly, the peace that comes from not feeling like that judgment is just like one glance away
Yeah.
is pretty powerful,
Yeah.
and mine broke, I think it was like 2018. I
Hmm.
had an old school Fitbit, but it had the chest strap to monitor my heart rate, and I used to do all the things. But thankfully, 2016 is when I started my escape plan from diet and fitness
Mm-hmm.
culture. And I remember when the battery died, because didn't last as long as they do now, and making that conscious choice of, I'm not
Yeah.
replacing the battery.
Yeah.
And I could never. And my kids hate it, but it's the one hill that I've died on with them, that they will not wear smartwatches. They will not.
Good. Agreed.
It's the only hill I'm dying on with them, but I'm just
Yeah.
like, you don't need more data. You
You don't
don't
need
need
more
more
data.
ways for people to constantly communicate with you. Your nervous system does not want that. Anyway, that was one tangent. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Let me just add to that a bit too, because so something that I often talk about, so I don't like, quote unquote, do weight loss, like I'm not join my
Yeah.
program for whatever. I have had people come to me saying, blah, 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 life things have changed. There was a death in the family. I put on a lot of weight. You're the only person I would want to work with as I like get back to my whatever. They had previous
Yeah.
things that were working for them and they want to gently go return. But what I always tell people is, uh, changing your body drastically is like 400 level body awareness and connection. And similarly, like getting metrics, you need to know why you're doing that. So there's a reason. Like I literally, I've been doing longer distance running. I've run a few half marathons, and this spring I was training for another one. And then I kind of had like this kind of weird fatigue moment, blah, 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 blah thing. And so I reached out to a colleague and she was like, have you ever used a chest monitor? And I immediately was like, "Bleh, I don't want to do metrics." And
Yeah.
she was like, what if we just got a couple weeks of data so that you could go back to your running practice and we would you could probably sense when your fatigue, she was like, I have a feeling you maxed out on your heart rate. But she was like, we could see what happens and then we could stop using it. And I was like, that I love. Let's
Yeah.
just do this for a little bit. You could use your step counter for 1 week of your average daily life just to give you info like, oh, I really thought on Thursdays I'm on my feet a lot more. Turns out I'm not. That's interesting. I will do with that what I may. I might just go, whatever. I guess I don't walk around a lot on Thursdays. Or you could be like, maybe I'll just add a little afternoon walk between here and there. But this idea of like constantly tracking metrics, just like calorie counting or something, is just this maddening maze that I think like we are very vulnerable as humans with our brains to this kind of like patterning, conditioning, literally being conditioned like rats in a cage. And so you get addicted to the looking at the metric and the like praise or the little like
Absolutely.
failure button or whatever, as opposed to using it for useful information of just being like, oh, look at that. My heart rate is going up more than I thought it would when I run uphill. That's interesting. Let me go back and speak with an expert, my colleague, to be like, how should I be training so that that doesn't happen? And then I let me throw this thing away. You know?
Yeah, and that's a really great example. I often will say too, like, well, if somebody, people say, should I track my fiber for a while? Should I track my this? And I'm like, well, what are you going to do with that data?
Yeah,
And is it that you are going to action it
exactly.
and then move forward, or are you going to use it to measure and judge your goodness? Which is
Exactly.
really what most people are like. If I'm being good, I'm hitting these targets.
Correct. Yeah.
Versus, I don't know if I'm getting enough fiber. I want to keep track of my fiber for a week or two, and then
Yeah.
I'll know where to fill in the blanks. Like those are two very different situations. So it's not all or nothing thinking. It's just
Yeah.
that most of the time, I don't think people are getting the information from that data or using it in the way like you and I are talking about.
Yeah. And to just kind of root this again in like bodies, I feel like what also happens is we already live in a world, especially in like a woman femme presenting body, where we're always getting outside judgment and we're really measuring our worth and the value of our body and the actions that we're taking in our lives based on kind of like outside response. And then you put a metric on yourself and now you have this like kind of constant like CNN stream of pass or fail. And I think my work is always in trying to get people to feel connected to their own body, feeling their own body, able to literally check in with themselves. So, if you're a client of mine, I have a lot of clients that have poor night sleeps for a whole variety of reasons, from, menopause to just like, I have a new mom client,
Sure.
all these things. I don't want you waking up, looking at your watch, and your watch is like, some of them are like, you are not recovered. You are not allowed to do like X amount of activity a day. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so my mom that has like a newborn and a 3-year-old, she's like, should she just lay in bed? She's not recovered enough to run around after her kids. But it
Yeah.
like gives you it's like standing up in front of your class presentation and going, guys, I really didn't work on this very hard. It's going to be bad. Which now everyone is like, I guess it's going to be bad, right? Versus I want my client to be able to sense into their body and go, wow, I was up a lot with the baby, but actually I feel relaxed today. I have a nice day ahead. I'm feeling pretty good. It's a sunny day. I'm gonna have a cup of tea. I'm gonna have a well-rounded breakfast, and I'm gonna head out there with trust in my body. But I think like we're already built into the society that teaches us not to trust our body. Please trust outside, give all your agency to outside forces and judgment
Outsourcing.
already. And now you have a metric being like, and also this tech device that doesn't take into account the rest of your life and your own like ability to just have a resilient frame of mind. Or like, I'm someone, my whole family suffers with insomnia. I function amazingly on very little sleep. Believe me, my partner, he one less hour of sleep and he's like passed out at 4 in the afternoon. I'm like, woo, I'm doing great, you know? I don't ever want something tracking my sleep and telling me how terrible my body is day to day because I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel great. I feel great. I'm not aging early. I have a client who's 87. She has terrible night's sleep her whole life. And I always say to her, you're my inspiration. You're doing great. You're healthy. You've got your full cognitive powers. You've had insomnia forever. I've known her for 20 years. She's never slept well. And I'm like, look at you, 87, doing great.
Yeah, and I mean the outsourcing of data is definitely one thing, but also is it actually information?
Exactly.
We want information to that makes decisions easier to make, right?
Yeah.
I had somebody this week, and I don't know what system or whatever thing she has, but she said that when she went to bed, it told her that she was at risk for undertraining,
Oh
and
my
then when
God,
she
it's
woke
terrible.
up or overtraining, and then when she woke up in the morning, it told her she was at risk of undertraining, and she was like, "Guys, come on." What am I supposed to do with that? So
Yeah.
in that case, the information that she was getting, the data she was getting was not making the decision process any easier. It was actually adding noise to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
what I would like to talk a little bit about is kind of the parallel of a situation that I see a lot where people spent a lot of time in diet culture following rules, the diet of the day from like 1983 on or whatever it is. And so maybe
Mm,
they're more bakers, like they're used to following rules, they like that, but when they're told that, they're going to try cooking instead of baking for the first time, they're really excited at first because they're like, I can do anything and, I can mix and match whatever I want. But it starts to feel a little bit chaotic and then they get scared and then they're like, actually, I don't know how to do this. I'm just going to go back to what I know,
true.
which is
Yeah.
following a set of rules. And so, what we were talking about at the beginning, people not fitting into this one size fits all fitness. I know I hear a lot of people who have that similar, I don't know what to do if I'm not following a plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure you do too. Am I right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, the first thing I want to always bring people's mind attention to is one's recovery from things, it like at base level will probably take a decade, just to start out, just to be real. And that doesn't mean that you are going to stop your like slim fast shake diet and for 10 years be in constant struggle or have your weight going up and down and up and, it's not 10 years of chaos, but it could be 2 years of stopping and starting and stopping and starting. It could be 6 months of feeling totally lost and frustrated and looking for guidance and, just feeling really down on yourself.
Yeah.
It could be 2 years of really thinking you figured it all out and this program is working. And then you got super sick with something and just like had a series of events like sick and then you moved and then blah, blah, and everything went out the window and you thought you had it all figured out. And now you feel super frustrated again. I think truly like building agency is about building trust and trust literally takes time and you can't just be like I'm no longer dieting, I'm free like in one day. You have to like
You can't really?
yeah, I mean, I think you know saying that I do also really believe in like radical shift. Like I think for me personally, honestly, when Trump was first elected, I had like my brain went bloop and I thought that I had already healed my kind of internalized misogyny and that I need to work out to look a certain way. And when that happened and misogyny became very mainstream in the US, where it was very accepted to say horrible things about women, um, I realized that there was still this like 15% of my thought process that was like, as I would say, it was like doing cardio 'cause boys. You know what I mean? That's how I heard it in my head. I was like, oh, there is a little part of me that when I go for a run is like, 'cause boys. So I did in one day go, whoa, how do I just like excavate that for my body? And what I did was for about 6 to 8 months, I literally did no cardio and I stopped doing all exercise that was like extremely vigorous. I literally was just doing Pilates and stretching and just really dropping into myself and kind of doing this like, the ball drops all the way down and like hits the ground and goes blue, and it was like slow motion because I knew I would come back up. I've been active my whole life. I was like,
Yep.
how do I find my way back into these practices with this like very like cleaned out perspective? And I did, and it did lead me into being much more interested in kettlebell training because it's a skill. It's not as not to say that weightlifting is simplistic, but it's like there's choreography, there's kind of like there's a little bit more of an investment in like just kind of the art of it versus just like doing reps of something. It brought me back into my running practice, looking to have like goals, like I want to be able to run this far,
Yeah.
instead of just being like, oh, I go for a 30-minute run because that's what you're supposed to do, which in the back of my mind was like, because then you burn X amount of calories and you're like doing your quote unquote, you're doing that checkbox Baker list fitness. But then I started to find purpose and all these things bigger than just my body and bigger than like essentially some outside perspective. And that is like super empowering. It's really
Sure.
great. So I think you can have those like watershed moments where someone says something or you see something or you just catch yourself doing a thing that you've been doing your whole life and you go, oh my God, am I literally going to look at my thighs and have this thought till I'm 105? Like, when does that stop? It could actually just stop right now. That is true. But I think for most of us, if you are really, because this is something I say to my clients, because I used to have clients only locally in Brooklyn, and, here we are, coastal city. There's a lot of support for like diversity and queerness and like different perspectives. But I think I have a client who's literally is in the mountains in Kentucky or Tennessee. There's no one around like me where she is. And that's not just me being like, people in the South. It's just like she literally lives in a tiny town and doesn't have a lot of access to resources that would be like talking about stuff like this. And I think if you are living in a home environment where people are like, oh, dad's put on a few pounds, that's going to be a really long process for you to heal on your own just because you are just saturated in it from everywhere. And
My
then
God.
just like we were talking about before the podcast, telling people to diversify what they're listening to in their podcast, what they're looking at on social media, like try and find those resources in the magic of the internet where you can take things from communities and cultures that are really far from where you are. Because that process, it needs a lot of support. You really can't do it alone, just like by gritting your teeth and unlearning decades and decades of diet culture.
And that's the undieting work, right? Is that
Yeah.
before you can move forward with what you want or think you want, you have to undiet the programming that
Yeah.
you have held about whatever it is. And undieting from fitness, undieting from food, undieting from the patriarchy, like all of it is related, right?
And hold yourself with grace that, like you said, there's a real sense of fear around letting go of these structures, and to really just, that could just be the first moment is going, wow, those structures were really helping me feel like I was quote unquote doing something every day. And when I don't have those like judgmental voices and little judgment check boxes, I do feel literally anxious. I don't really know. I feel like I'm free falling. That can just be like a conversation you have with yourself over and over a few times, however many times it takes to just go, wow, I'm really having a lot of anxiety just standing in front of the fridge because I can't go good, bad food. And I have to just stand here and go, what do I actually want to eat? Ooh, I can feel it on my skin. I'm scared, and just go, well, that's interesting. And then hopefully step forwards and go, that's what I want to eat.
Yeah. I mean, that's the observing without judgment, right? Which is
Yeah.
such a hard skill to be able to kind of stand outside yourself and be like, what is happening? What's going on? What is it that I'm feeling? What do I want? Without deciding whether or not you're being good or bad. Is this a good thought?
Yeah.
Is this a bad thought?
Yeah.
So interesting, the whole kettlebell story and like the needing to stop everything. I just shared this in a newsletter a couple of weeks ago, if anybody's listening to this when it comes out, about how Jillian Michaels' kettlebell program in like 2012 was my entry really into kettlebells and the whole fitness
I
world.
was also a Jillian Michaels
Oh, it's a
devotee for a while.
generational thing, right?
Yeah.
And now like I feel nauseous just like
Cringe.
saying those words. But, I really thought that it was like, I've got to do it. I think she wanted us to do like 6 days a week. And it was like literally 2 videos. We're supposed to do the same 2 videos 6 days a week for 30 days. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Right. But I also had to let everything go for almost 2 years. The only thing I could do was just like walk. And because the minute I was like, okay, today I'm going to work out, my brain just went into like, all right, and here's what that means. That means we're
Yeah.
doing it every day in the morning, 30 minutes, 6 days a week, no excuses. I
Yeah.
could not expand my belief system about what it looked like to be active and fit and whatever other adjective you want in there
Yeah.
without that default kind of just showing up.
Yeah.
But we get to midlife, and for all kinds of reasons, we're not fitting into a mold anymore, which I think is a great thing, but it can also be really uncomfortable. How do you help people get from, I don't know what to do because I only know how to do it one way, to this is your recipe. You can cook however you want.
Um, well, because people are all different, it definitely depends on like what and who is in front of me, what they're bringing to the table. There's usually a bunch of different reasons why that mold isn't working anymore. Most of the time, it's some injury has happened at one point or another, which is also, let me just like asterisk, just because you got injured doesn't mean there's something wrong with your body. Our bodies, we could say they're spiritual vessels, all these things, the beautiful, gifts from God, stardust, whatever you want to say. They also are mechanisms, they break down. If you have owned a pet of any kind, from a goldfish to a horse, you can see that the physical form ages, things get sort of rusty in time, so people being injured is very normal, and it is part of using your body in gravity in the
Yeah.
environment that we live in. We're not jellyfish. I try and say to people a lot, if I was a jellyfish going through the ocean, probably my lifespan cycle in my body feels very different. So, usually people come to me because they had some kind of fitness routine that like was working for them somewhat as an adult, and then they got injured, and then woo, that threw them completely off the tracks, and they just have not been able to figure out how to come back. And that might even be a fitness routine that was pretty diet culture invested, and in this injury process, they've been like, looking back, I actually sort of hated all of that. I don't want to do it. And also when I do XYZ, my knee kind of hurts. So now I extra don't want to do it. So what do I do now? Um, that's to say that a lot of my initial work with people my training is very much based in like somatic therapies, Alexander technique, Feldenkrais, um, a lot of I have a background in dance. Anyone who's ever taken a dance class, there's just a lot of like body exploration and getting to know your own body and how your body moves before we do something else. So kind of my first couple sessions with someone is literally like, let me just see you like sit, stand, walk, roll down from your skull to the floor, up and down. Let me just see your spine move, your arms move. And the first thing we do is just start to kind of build some stability here, some strength here. Let's get our primary colors in a
Yeah.
row before we start doing,
Yeah.
this like very complex masterpiece that you thought that a jog around the block was. But actually it's pretty complex if you're 53 and you had a knee injury 20 years ago and then you badly sprained your ankle last winter, and turns out running is actually pretty challenging, or whatever, even your local like spin class turns out just being in a bike that has this very prescribed set form for your body is making your SI joint hurt, and you're just like, geez, what can I do? So that's my first step with people. But the next one is kind of similar to my own story, is like, what are you interested in? Like,
Yeah.
what gets you excited? What are you already doing? Are you walking? Maybe you would like running. Clearly you're able to get outside regularly. That might be a next step for you. Showing people strength training that can be in so many different ways, from body weight, so you have no equipment, to, using any equipment, dumbbells, TheraBand kind of things,
Yeah.
to something that might be a little bit more like fun and engaging, like kettlebells. I think a lot of women have not really had an opportunity to feel literally in touch with their own body's strength. And so I
Mhm.
think a lot of people who think of themselves as not very fit, most of my clients would say that they're not very coordinated when they first came to me. They always thought of themselves as like klutzy and they could never do sports or whatever. Once we start doing some strength work, where now they're doing like more compound exercises that just feel kind of like bold and kind of like sexy and fun. Like I'm going to do a
Yeah.
squat with a press at the top. Like now I just feel kind of like literally like roar, you know?
Yeah.
That's pretty like people are like, "Whoa, that was fun. I like that feeling." And strength training translates immediately to your daily life. So then people are like, one of my clients was telling me, she's gotten really into gardening and she used to ask her husband to dig all the holes for like shrubs and things like that. And I said to her, I think you can do that. I was like, we've been doing
Yeah.
kettlebells now for like 2.5 months. Like, you're strong. I think you can try that out. And she like texted me with photos of all, she was like, look what I did. I did it all myself. She was like, it was not as hard as I thought,
I
And
love
like
that.
that, amazing. That's all I want. Not everyone needs to be like doing some triathlon, whatever. Like that's the other part of fitness culture is that it always has this crazy, like huge goal. These are the things that we see in our little algorithms and our news
Yeah.
feeds is like, mom of four wins Hawaii death marathon crazy volcano climb, and you're like, okay, I
Yeah.
kind of want to just jog around my block, like,
Yeah.
but the jog around the block, the digging your own holes in the garden, the like, being able to carry your toddler on your shoulder and the dog leash in the other hand, like that is where you really notice like, whoa, I feel good. I feel good in my body. And like that sensation, that keeps people going.
Yeah. Love all of that. And it made me think of a question that I would love to ask you, that it's related to kind of a question I get about food a lot, which is how do I know if I'm getting enough of the right things? When people are intuitive eating, they're not tracking anymore. They kind of have this disconnect and as they're building that trust relationship with their body and they're like, yeah, but how do I know if I'm doing it right, if I'm getting enough? I'm sure you get that question. How do
Yeah, yeah.
you help people answer that?
Um, it's so funny. We just did a summer bundle on all three of my self-paced courses. And one is a strength-based course, it's kettlebell training. One is my self-massage technique that I developed and trademarked called fascia release, where you do foam roller and self-massage for injuries and like rehab and also prehab. So sorting out asymmetries that might eventually cause injury. And then the other one is my stability course, which is sort of like a body weight Pilates, and a lot of those somatic techniques in there. And like my little tagline was there's no right way to begin, begin where you are, because that's the thing. I have a lot of clients that are elderly. If you're 77 and you've never worked out before, we're going to just start with some basic strength work and get you just feeling better in your body, connected to your body. You're literally feeling your body. And then that's going to help with your balance and that's going to help with your confidence. And then maybe it might be handy for you to add a little quote unquote cardio, but just going for a little walk and going for a little further walk and trying to pick up your speed. But let's do that only when we feel really confident about our balance and our strength. And for someone that age, your ability to get up off the ground in case you trip.
Yeah.
Um, to kind of bring this idea that we're all supposed to get XYZ all the time is so reductive to our actual lives. And I fall for it myself. So the other day, I literally caught myself thinking, geez, I really haven't been running a lot lately. I think I'm getting like, guess I'm really not getting any cardiovascular training in the week. And then I was like, oh, except for when I bike commute to where I do teach a few people in person at a space that I rent in Brooklyn. And it's a 40-minute one-way bike ride that goes mostly uphill. And then on the way back, it's also uphill because you have to like basically climbing over this park. And I was like, oh, except the nearly 90 minutes of cycling that I do. But in my mind, I was like, it's not a workout. Like it's amazing how
Yeah.
much I was like, oh, but that's my commute. I'm not in my like workout clothes. You know what I mean? It's amazing how we fall into these traps. So you might be someone who has like two collie dogs that you take on a 5-mile hike every morning because if you don't, they'll drive you crazy all day. But in your mind, you're like, oh, but I don't run. So I must be so bad at cardio. I never do any cardio. Whereas someone else would be like, you're going on a 5-mile hike every morning?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. With the comparison, right? That's really what
yeah,
gets us, is comparing ourselves and using somebody else's experience
exactly.
as a mirror of our own.
Yeah,
And I think too, what I tell people is, do you have enough energy? Are you, do you feel like you are supporting how your body is working? Like, are
yeah,
those parts
exactly.
working well? And maybe there are some metrics like lab work that can help, give you some feedback about things we can improve on, but not everything can be controlled with food either. So some things
Exactly.
are going to change regardless of what you do. And I think that with fitness, what I hear from a lot of people in movement is that once they have developed the trust that their body wants it and enjoys it, they can also trust the days when they want more or less.
Truth. Yeah.
Right? It does not become this, oh my gosh, I haven't moved in 5 days. It becomes oh, I haven't felt like moving in 5 days. I wonder
Yeah.
why. Right?
That's the freedom. Like, I think that in your healing process is when you can really give yourself a gold star if we're going to do metrics.
Yeah.
Because that moment when you can have conversations with yourself, that is freedom. Freedom is agency. Freedom is
Yeah.
choice. Like, your ability to not go, oh, I haven't done XYZ for 2 weeks, but to go, I haven't done XYZ for 2 weeks. And self inquiry, what's going on, I think that's huge. Like, that is the moment. I mean, I will share with my clients, I am not impervious to thoughts about my body, but when I quote unquote notice that I've put on weight, I don't immediately go, how terrible, I'm a hideous monster and a big failure. I go, why is that happening? And then I might think all kinds of things. Am I close to my period? Well, there we go. Wouldn't it be great if I tracked my period and then this wasn't a surprise every month? Or I might go, yeah, it's been a really stressful month actually. We've been ordering in a lot. I haven't been doing things that I like to do. I haven't been restoring. That is a great that is a great response to my body, is having to these inputs, a very normal and natural response. And I really like cooking and I like having more downtime, and let me just refocus on those. And
Yeah.
then I stop paying attention to that thought and all of those things. But that's just like a nice little self inquiry, because of course our bodies are going to change, but to continually like add context instead of just seeing our bodies as like kind of like Barbie in the little case where she's like pinned to the to the cardboard wall behind her, and we're supposed to always be like that forever. It's not where my body exists.
That's not where, I mean, it's Barbie, right? We can't compare ourselves to Barbie.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there was a really great story that just came up with somebody in the feaster community who has been working on a relationship with movement, and always would feel guilty if like she missed a few days with movement because of work, because of life or whatever. And it kind of came out, I guess, that she figured out that it was because she was afraid she would never get started again. That if she stopped
Mm,
for too long,
mm,
she would never be able to get started again. And then she went away for the weekend with a girlfriend who really likes to just relax when they're relaxing, which is great. But she found herself craving movement
mm,
on like the third day. Was like, oh my gosh, I really wish I could go for a bike ride or a walk. And it was such an aha moment for her, because she connected that actually I do have it in me to want to move my body.
exactly.
I just have to trust it and not be
Exactly.
looking at these external factors to drive the motivation, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I think you also said something earlier, like, what does your body need basically? What are you wanting from your body? So, like, if you're not exercising for a while and then you find that you're like bringing groceries up your stairs. I mean, I live in a city, so like people going up walk-ups is like a real thing. And you're
Yeah.
noticing like, oh, I have to just stop at the landing of every floor just to catch my breath. That you're like, oh, it was better 3 months ago when I was like really working out a little bit
Yeah.
more consistently. That's a great like little
Yeah.
cue, and that's like, or like maybe you're just doing this now and you don't have a fitness practice, and you're like, oh, that would be so nice if that was easier. So what would help me do that? Strength training, like getting on a bike more often, like what would that look like? Similarly, your client just experiencing hanging out and just being like, oh, I actually have a feeling in my body where my body wants some kind of movement that turns out also isn't prescriptive. It's not 30 minutes of one
Yeah.
thing. It's just movement. It's just living in this vehicle, which is an animal body, and all animals need movement. And the closer we get to our bodies and the closer and the more trust that we build, the more we see like I have a Chihuahua who's only 4, but she acts like she's 4 months old still. We're always like, will she ever mature? Um, and if she doesn't get a good enough walk, hashtag small dogs need long amounts of exercise. They're not lap dogs. She does sprints around our couch at 10 o'clock at night, and it's absolutely hysterical. But I just so love seeing that she feels her body and she's like, I need to get
Yeah.
this energy out and I need to run. And she'll just sprint and sprint and sprint. And she takes a little break and then she sprints and sprints and sprints. It's totally hysterical. But I'm also like, and it's my cue too. I'm like, okay, tomorrow we're gonna make time for a longer walk for you.
Yeah. That's great.
But it's like that's the craving that your client felt. Like I have felt that too, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm doing all this work, I'm on my computer, and then I stand up and just like a little puppy, I'm like, ooh, my body wants to do some movement. I gotta figure something out.
Yeah.
You know?
It all comes down to trust. And I think that
Yeah.
that's what I really appreciate about your approach and everything that you share and the conversations that you have on your Busybody podcast is really such a great reminder that we can learn to rebuild trust at any
Absolutely.
age.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
last question that I ask everyone, what do you think is the missing ingredient in midlife?
Oh my God. The first thing that popped in my mind is just sort of like joy, playtime. It's
Yeah.
something that I talk about a lot in classes because I try to add things into my classes that are play moments. Like we're gonna do something like in my mat-based classes that's 100% above our level. A really goofy, there's a lot of very classic Pilates exercises that don't get taught very much because a lot of Pilates is actually pretty gymnastic. And
Yeah.
so some of them are like kind of doing an egg roll on your back till you roll all the way over and touch your skull
Oh,
forwards, like you're
yeah,
going to
yeah.
do a somersault, but you're holding your feet and it's very goofy. It's like something a 3-year-old would make up. And I'm like, we're going to try this and it's not going to work. 100% it's not going to work. But in trying it, we're all going to learn something. We're all going to be like, whoa, I didn't know that I could hold my feet while in this goofy position and move. Or we're going to be like, whoa, what's happening in my shoulders? Or like my boobs fall on my face and I can't breathe. Like we're going to learn a goofy thing. And I think adults, we don't get space to just be silly and just kind of experience our bodies. And we also get really fearful of quote unquote hurting ourselves. So we literally
Yeah.
don't try things because we're scared, which is totally legit, especially if you've had a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
But it really holds us back also from joyful moments. And I think often my partner and I, we do cold swimming in the wintertime with a group of delightful people um, every Sunday. And it is just like adult playtime. Like we always are just like, that's so much of the experience. One day a friend of ours brought a kite and it was like February and we all stood around flying this kite, literally like children running up and down the beach,
That's
trying
awesome.
to be like me next and like holding it and all stuff. And it's like 20 degrees out, windy on a beach. We're all in our winter coats running around, totally having fun in a way that like you have to carve that out as an adult. Like that is very intentional. I mean, it was a thing I kind of stumbled on for sure, but once I hooked into this community, I was like, oh, this is benefiting on 1,000 levels, And I
Yeah.
think that I see that really missing for people because we have all these responsibilities that come with adulthood and a lot of people that need our time. And I do think that it's an overused word and like an overused prescription because there's always some like podcast bro using this kind of word and sentence. But to be intentional with our time and really think like, do I need to scroll on my phone for 2 hours on Sunday morning? Or could that be a time that me or my family, that we just do something that's like really open? We all go to a playground and we all play on the things. Adults going on swing sets, like what can we all do that's just open and it's not like this like kind of already prescribed, like going to brunch has a beginning, middle, and end. What's the thing that we can do that we don't really know what's going to happen? Because that's really where the most fun experiences and memories and experiences of our own body, where we build that trust, that's where that happens. So yeah, that's the first thing that pops in my mind. It's
I love
not
it.
more protein.
Thank God. Oh my gosh, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. You know, we're going to put the links to where people can find you and everything like that. But what is your handle on Instagram if people want to kind of head
At
over there
Brooklyn
quickly?
Strength, Brooklyn just like the city,
Okay, perfect.
Brookly. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And I'm sure that lots of people will hopefully feel inspired to maybe kind of let that unraveling happen if they've been
Mm,
feeling stuck and build it back up with intention.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Midlife Feast. If you're ready to take the next step towards thriving in midlife, head to menopausenutritionist.ca to learn more about my one-to-one and group coaching programs, free resources, and where to get your copy of Eat to Thrive during menopause. And if you've loved today's conversation and found it helpful, please share it with a friend who needs to hear this and leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps so many more people just like you find their way to food freedom and midlife confidence. Until next time, remember, midlife is not the end of the story, it's the feast. Let's savor it together.